If you are broke and you want to stop being broke, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can copy what Warren Buffett's done for himself. In today's presentation, for everyone here, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 lessons that I learned from Uncle Warren and exactly how I've operationalized this for myself. My name is Jin. I'm a 25-year-old entrepreneur, and last I made more than $500,000 at the age of 24. In the short form video on the slides, I also kind of gave a net worth breakdown over there for anyone who's a bit curious. And the very first quote that Warren Buffett says is stay within your circle of competence. So I think everyone here knows what this means over here, right? Basically, do not invest, do not do things that you have no idea about. And this is one reason why Uncle Warren for the longest time was not invested in IT stocks, even though right now Apple's actually one of Berkshire's largest holdings, because he made sure that he did invest on the hype. He isn't into Bitcoin. He doesn't invest in things that he isn't familiar with. But how can we actually operationalize this? So I want to give you a 3P's framework that I actually came up with. So the first P here is profession, second P is pain, third P is passion. So let's say, for example, that you're in our company and you're a SEO consultant or web developer. That's your profession, right? Number 2 over here, it's what is a pain point that you struggle with? And number 3, it is your passion to find out more about, how to help businesses get more customers or grow using IT services. So in that case, it will make a lot of sense for you to kind of invest in IT companies. Number 2, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. So I know that this is easier said than done, but I want to give you a very concrete way to actually operationalize this, because right now with the war and all of the stuff that Trump is doing, the stock market's actually been going down. I think, Anne, as you're familiar with this. Everyone I think knows about dollar cost averaging, but I actually want to point out one thing that a lot of people don't really know, which is that you need to make sure that every time you calculate your liquid net worth, which might be at the end of every single month or the end of every single week, for me, I do this weekly, you always want to make sure to calculate your cost basis net worth in addition to your market value net worth. And for anyone who isn't familiar with these terms, market value net worth basically means that right now, what are all of my stocks trading at? If I were to sell everything right now, property, stocks, what is the total amount of money that I would have right now after paying off all liabilities? And cost basis net worth is I put $10,000 into Meta last month, and right now it's gone down to maybe a $9,500 valuation. So my cost basis net worth will remain at $10,000, whereas my net worth cost basis might be $9,500. And so the reason you want to do this is because it is incredibly difficult to do dollar cost averaging if you see that your net worth is decreasing month over month. For your mental, it's not very good, right? Easier said than done. But if you track a cost basis net worth as well, then you can keep yourself going and keep yourself investing, because you'll make money from your business or from your job. And so your cost basis net worth will continue to go up. And so you can ignore the market fluctuations by putting your market value net worth at the side, and say you have 2 metrics to keep an eye out. Next one, temperament beats intelligence any day of the week. So Buffett is a very famous person for saying that he's not the most intelligent person, but he's someone with an ungodly amount of patience, and he doesn't get affected by the market. To give you a more concrete way of kind of visualizing this, I heard about this story about the Mr. Market story. I think from either Uncle Warren himself, or I think I kind of read the first half of The Intelligent Investor. So maybe I read it there. But here's the story goes. Every single day, without fail, Mr. Market shows up to your door. He gives you a random price on how much he wants to buy a house for. On Monday, he says that he wants to buy a house for $1 million, right? Amazing. On Tuesday, he says that he wants to buy a house for $10,000. Every single day, his prices change. Every single day. Mr. Market is crazy and emotional, but you aren't. So do not allow yourself to be swayed by crazy people on the street. For example, if someone said to me, I hate your pink hair. Jin, your pink hair looks awful. I would kind of look at them and be like, I don't even have pink hair. So if you know that you shouldn't listen to a random crazy stranger, then why are you letting your emotions be swayed by Mr. Market and his craziness on a day-to-day basis? You wouldn't, right? And so in that sense, when you buy into an ETF or stock or something, you can calculate its intrinsic value, and so that every single day or every single month, when you check your stock portfolio and you see the prices are going super down or super high up, you don't have to think or have your emotions be affected by it, because you knew that when you bought into the stock, it was based on a hypothesis of an intrinsic value, and so you're not going to be swayed by the ups and downs of the market or the craziness of a war or whatever's happening with Trump. So if you feel like you do have to do something else, because patience is defined as doing something in the meantime, so if you're waiting and you feel like you're being impatient, As long as you're working on your business, as long as you're working on your job, you are actually being patient. Number 4, my most favorite quote from Uncle Warren: the best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you earn. And so this is a quote that I really hold like maybe the truest to my heart out of all the 5 quotes I'm going to cover today. And the main reason is because I'm a huge fan of active income. I think that anyone here who's like planning to become self-made, active income is always going to be more important than passive income. Because if you don't have $1 million or $10 million to begin with, what good is it at investing it for passive income to get 8% or 10% return? Make active income cool again. And from my side of it, the way I see it is that, say for example, you spend 20 hours in a given month. You spend the 20 hours figuring out how you can make $100 in passive income. But what if you took that 20 hours and used to get better at your job and increase your earning potential from $5,000 a month to $7,000 a month? Because the thing is, passive income and active income are both denominated in terms of per month, right? Or per year, whatever. But in my opinion, at least for myself, I've gotten a much higher ROI by taking any spare time or resources that I have and instead putting it in how can I make more money actively rather than how can I make more money passively. Just to kind of share a personal side of it from me, my mom is a very successful entrepreneur. And when I was younger, so I'm 25 right now, when I was 14 years old, my mom wanted to grow her business, get more customers, and she spent $5,000 on herself to go to an SEO course. And I basically said to her, can I come along with you? She said to me, are you sure? Because, $5,000 times 2 would be $10,000. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. So she ended up paying $10,000 for the both of us to go. And it was a 2 or 3 day bootcamp course. And unfortunately, she didn't pick SEO up. But fortunately, I did. And so I actually helped to revamp her website. I got her website to page rank number 1 of Google. And then she came to me with a crazy idea, which is, can you help me to create 3 new websites with different domain names in different colors and get all of them to the top of page 1? So I said to her, I'll try. And I ended up doing that for her. And she created a monopoly of her market for many years while everyone was dancing on TikTok and making videos on social media, kind of like what I'm doing right now. She actually managed to create a monopoly of a market for many years. And 3 or 4 years ago, she sold a company for a sum of money. Yeah, after she ran it for nearly 2 decades. So I'm a very big believer in kind of like learning skill sets to increase your earning potential. Courses are not the only way to go. You can buy coffee for successful entrepreneurs. You can read books, watch YouTube. I'm a big fan of going to, bookstores and, like Barnes and Nobles and kind of like grabbing a book off the shelf. I read Atomic Habits through going to the bookstore and reading like chapter by chapter and never buying the book. Last but not least, the very 5th quote I'm going to cover today: compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. I think that we all know how important compounding is, but what I really want to do today is I'm going to share a quick, 2 quick stories. So the first story was something I heard from Business Insider, and I actually read this article a long time ago when I was younger. One person starts saving at 25 years old. The other person starts saving at 35 years old. They are both investing and saving $200 per month until retirement at 65. Assume in this story that they receive a 6% per annum interest yield or rate after inflation. At their retirement at 65 years old, the person who started saving and investing earlier now has $96,000 invested. On the other hand, the person who started at 35 only has $72,000 invested. Now, if you're not familiar with what this means, it means that obviously the person who started investing 10 years earlier would have $200 per month times 12 months times 10 years, kind of like more money put into the market. But here's the crazy thing. Despite a 10-year difference and a $20,000 difference in cost basis, the person who started earlier actually ends up with $402,000 versus the person who started later and ends up with $203,000. So if anyone here is like looking at the slides and thinking about it to yourself, that's a crazy thing to say. You invest $20,000 more, but you end up with $200,000 more. You start 10 years earlier and you're the same age as someone else. And you might have even made the same amount, like in terms of salary as someone, but you now have double the amount of net worth as them. So for example, for me, as someone who's 25 years old this year, maybe some of my friends are still in university, or if you're doing a master's or PhD, I have a friend who's doing a PhD who's a real genius, but he'll only be graduating when he's 29. And so if he ends up accumulating $500,000 at 35 years old, and I have $500,000 right now at 25, so I have a 10-year head start in him, you can just think to yourself like, At the end of both of our careers, he might have $5 million, but I would actually have $10 million. It really just like shows you how important investing is and how you have to start earlier. The only thing I regretted is that instead of starting at 14, I wish I started when I was like 9 or way earlier. Like that's pretty much the only regret that I have. Obviously, I'm half joking as I say this, but yeah. And if this doesn't convince you, I want to share with you a different frame or way for you to think about money that I also shared on Instagram. Would you like a $5 coffee? Imagine that you went to Starbucks with a friend of yours and your friend's asking you, would you like to grab a $5 coffee? I would like you to think about this. $5 invested at 8% per annum over 20 years comes out to $23.30. The math is on the slides for anyone wondering. So a $5 coffee isn't just $5. It may be $5 today, but it's actually $23 in future value. And this is specifically 20 years in the future. So for anyone who's kind of like thinking to yourself and looking at the slides, think about it. When you go to Starbucks, are you willing to pay $23 for a cup of coffee? Think about it. You could actually spend 50 cents, today's 50 cents on a cup of coffee. But would you be willing to spend $23 for coffee? At least for me, the answer is usually no. So for me, I usually buy coffee maybe once a month max, depending if I'm going out for work or something with partners and clients. But the way that I think about it is that every dollar that you save today isn't $1, but rather it is a significant amount of money depending on whether you're looking 20 or 30 years in future value. So for anyone here who still doesn't understand compound interest or how it can work to your favor like investments or against your favor in expenses, I hope that this is a very visual example for you to see it. And so time is really like of the essence. Comment if you want any of the slides. I'm more than happy to send them over. Because I started YouTube around 2 months ago in February of 2026, I also have a whopping 81 subscribers as of today. So if you want to help me to not be sad, please feel free to subscribe and comment below. Thank you.